pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can you please silence your electronic devices? Appreciate it. Call the Village of Massena Board of Trustees meeting to order for February 2nd, 2016. Roll call, Mr. Otto.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Carvel.
Here.
Mr. DeShays.
Here.
Mr. Levere.
Present.
I'm here. Entertain a motion for the approval of meeting minutes for December 15, 2015.
So moved.
Mr. Otto.
Second.
Second by Mr. Carvel. Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Reports of officers and committees. Code enforcement, Mr. Carvel, Mr. Levere.
Nothing to report at this time. I am working on a couple proposals that I need to get with Francis with, and also the trustee lockout as it relates to water, sewer, and we'll be back to the board maybe next meeting.
Economic Development Committee, Mr. Oppold, Mr. Levere.
I see that you had sent us I had requested an update from last time. You want to just talk about some of the high-level things that you can talk about? Strategic. What's the name of the strategic?
Strategic Development Specialist.
Yeah, that's the,
I guess I can highlight that, they've met with a number of our departments, a number of entities in the communities. That's an ongoing process, particularly as needs arise and needs are identified, particular grant funding opportunities are available. I've listed some of those on there. Of course, I've listed the plans that they've reviewed to line up funding sources and opportunities for the different strategies that this community's developed over the years, and the most recent, of course, in some of the proposed plans that are currently in existence. Identify the number of projects and initiatives that they're currently working on, which is about 37 of those. They've had 2 successful grant applications, which is the 2015 Northern Border Regional Commission grant for the 1 gig internet, which will be beginning soon, and the 2015 Regional Economic Development Council process for the development of Water Street lot, the property there on the Grass River, and there are additionally 2 current grants pending that they've applied for.
so I guess the reason that for my question was I just wanted to see if it was the money's being well spent. It looks like so far we're getting the bang for our buck, which is that's a good thing. The only thing is with the grants, we need to be wary that most times we got to receive money, we have to throw out too.
Right.
We have a lot of seed money.
Quite often.
It's got
Much as needed.
right. No, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Fire Committee, Mr. Carvel, Mr. Levere.
There's an item for later on the agenda.
Personnel Committee, Mr. Carvel, Mr. DeShays.
I had some interviews this past week.
Police Committee, Mr. Carvel, Mr. DeShays.
Once again, we had interviews with the police this past week. Probably have more in the weeks to come, so. I don't know if the chief has anything he'd like to add in.
Recreation, Mr. DeShays.
We meet on the second Tuesday of the month, so next week, so we have a monthly meeting, report next week.
Street Committee, Mr. Oppold, Mr. Levere. Water and Sewer, Mr. Oppold, Mr. Levere.
Looks like appropriately on Groundhog's Day we'll be talking about something soon.
Initial public comment period is always
Pretty good, huh?
That was good.
As always, I'd ask you to stand and please state your name for the record. Initial public comment period. Ms. Charlotte.
Julie Charlotte, I reside at 214 Stafford Street here in the village. On the agenda this evening is a proposed resolution under new business I. There's a proposed resolution for the village to purchase property located on East Hatfield Street. This resolution was put across my desk this afternoon. The proposed resolution was for the village to buy 26 parcels of property behind the current DPW for $32,000. These parcels border residential property, the property they intend to purchase is residential B property. And it borders residential property on Urban Drive, East Hatfield Street, and Bailey Road. There are 18 lots with homes on Urban Drive that would be affected, 22 lots with homes on East Hatfield that would be affected, and one large lot with access on Bailey Road that would be affected. I inquired what the purchase of this property was for, and I was told that it's for future DPW expansion. So my understanding is, the idea is to move the materials that are currently stored at the old DPW site on South Main Street to this property that they want to purchase behind the DPW. I left work at 4:30 this afternoon, and I went by the old DPW site. It's a dump. Stored there are materials. There is a sand pile, the salt dome with salt. There's a pile of crushed stone, a pile of topsoil, a mound of plastic bags, probably twice the size of this room, filled with leaves. There's a compost pile, a brush pile, and it's also a snow dump. I don't want a dump like this in my backyard. I don't believe any of you would want a dump like this in your backyard either. Right now, the property behind all of our homes on Urban Drive, East Hatfield, and Bailey Road is undeveloped. There's no one living behind us. There's nothing there except woods. It's a heavily wooded area. Will this land be cleared? Will a company be hired to clear it? And at what cost? Will infrastructure need to be put in this area? And at what cost? I'm a little bit frustrated that this came across my desk this afternoon and was just put on the agenda this afternoon because I, who work here, wasn't aware of it. So I'm sure that my neighbors on East Hatfield and Urban Drive and Bailey Road are aware of it as well. So.
Thank you. Further public comment?
On the agenda, when you come to the water bill thing, can you explain how you arrived at your proposition?
Yeah, how about when we get there, if
Okay, fine,
you don't mind?
yes.
Thank you. Further public comment? Seeing none, moving on. For users in good standing and affected by the United States Postal Service delivery error.
So moved.
Second.
Second by Mr. Woodbury, so discussion. As you know, this has been a topic that we've been looking at for quite some time. We've been in discussions with a number of people, including our legal counsel. But essentially, where this lands is it comes down to a local issue with our local law. And I think the struggle initially for, I'm just going to speak for myself, not for anyone else. The struggle was the way the law was written and the interpretation is whether or not we can do anything. But at the end of the day, for me personally, and the conversations that I started to have with people was, it came down to treating people fairly and doing what was right. And in this case, a number of people were affected by no fault of their own. And, you know, Trustee Offeld was doing a very good job of trying to get us to see that. And for me, it took me some time and discussion and research to get to a place of comfort where I was okay with us proceeding with this resolution as written.
Fair, sums it up.
Further discussion?
Do we need
So Trustee Offeld, we had a couple of amendments to the draft. Can we clarify those so the clerk gets them?
Certainly, let me just read it. You ready, Maureen? Whereas water users in a particular area of the village of Massena were assessed a 10% penalty in December for billings that were mailed on November 13, 2015. And whereas there was a mail processing error at the United States Postal Service facility that resulted in a specific box identified as Box 8 being forwarded to the Central Forwarding Services in Kingston, New York, delaying the delivery process significantly, and be it resolved that the Village Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the crediting of water bill penalties that were assessed in December for water users both in good standing at the time of the bill and affected by the USPS delivery error, and be it further resolved that the credit will only be applied to those bills mailed out in November, i.e. bi-monthly two, for the December 10, 2015 due date that were affected by the error of the United States Postal Service, more specifically, those users identified in box 8. End of resolution.
So review.
I'll give you this.
So reiterate the change in the third paragraph, be it resolved, we're inserting good standing at the time of the bill, the November bill, that was that issue, and we're eliminating the last, be it further resolved.
In good standing, meaning, at the time of the bill, meaning no balance, no previous balance.
That's correct. Further discussions, trustee? Poll individually. Mr. Otto?
Aye.
Mr. Carver? Aye. Mr. Deshaies?
Aye.
Mr. Lebire? Resolution carries. Thank you.
We should be clear that I've got 6 times 25 is what, 150? Shouldn't be math publicly, but I think it's 150. So for 25 years, I've gotten the water bill from the United States Postal Services, and they're pretty good. So I don't, let's publicly state that we're not, everybody makes mistakes. The United States Postal Service made one mistake out of 150. That's pretty darn good. I wish I had a batting average like that when where I work and where everybody else works. So.
Respectfully, if you'd have had that batting average, your softball team would have beaten mine more.
Yeah, I know, absolutely.
The Yankees are looking for you.
Yeah, yeah.
Discussion, I wanted to update you on the New York State Department of Transportation Aluminum Trail Project. And we were notified this summer, that the time frame was running short. So Superintendent Fayad and I went to Watertown in September, met with DOT officials and the engineering firm that's been involved in this process, and kind of brainstormed some various ideas that we could do to, number one, reduce the cost of the project and find a way to make it affordable for us. As you know, if this project didn't go forward, we were going to be stuck paying back federal money that was used in this grant to get this project to where it was to this point. And that number as of today is $229,136.50. $229,136.5. So we've been in discussions with a number of options, or we've been looking at a number of options. We think we have a good viable one. I just wanted to put on your radar screen that I'll be getting you that information in the next week or two and ask you for your consideration. And it looks like we'll be able to complete this project next year and get it done, replace the footbridge and finish the rest of this thing. So making this thing a reality after nearly 10 years. So.
Was that in the next fiscal year or the next?
Oh, well, this current, the next fiscal year, the next fiscal year. New businesses. We have a number of resolutions related to the Parker Avenue Bridge. Replacement. Proposed resolution authorizing for maintenance of sidewalks in conjunction with reconstruction of New York Route 37B Parker Avenue Bridge project. Mr. Lebire.
Second.
Mr. Otto. Discussion. Resolution poll individually. Mr. Otto.
Aye.
Mr. Carville. Aye. Mr. Deshaies.
Aye.
Mr. Lebire. Aye. Resolution carries. Proposed resolution authorizing agreement regarding encroachment in conjunction with reconstruction of New York State Route 37B Parker Avenue Bridge project. Motion by Mr. Otto.
Second.
Second by Mr. Deshaies. Discussion. Resolution poll individually. Offel.
Aye.
Mr. Carvel.
Aye.
Mr. Deshaies.
Aye.
Mr. Lemire.
Aye.
Resolution carries. Proposed resolution to authorize agreement to alter and pave intersecting roads in conjunction with the reconstruction of the New York Route 37B Parker Avenue Bridge Project.
So moved.
Mr. Lemire.
Second.
Second by Mr. Offel. Discussion. Resolution called individually. Mr. Offel.
Aye.
Mr. Carvel. Mr. Deshaies.
Aye.
Mr. Lemire.
Aye.
Proposed resolution to authorization of municipal official to enter an agreement with the New York State Department of Transportation in conjunction with the reconstruction of the New York Route 37B Parker Avenue Bridge Project.
Aye.
Mr. Offel,
Second.
second by Mr. Deshaies. Discussion. Resolution poll individually. Mr. Offel.
Aye.
Mr. Carver.
Aye.
Mr. Deshaies.
Aye.
Mr. Lemire.
Aye.
Authorize agreement pertaining to the maintenance of water mains with the,
Go
can we say
ahead.
that?
Go ahead.
Have parentheses? Look at that, not bad. And sanitary sewer with appurtenances in conjunction with the reconstruction of the New York Route 37B Parker Avenue Bridge. A question came up today, and this essentially has to do with, in the event, like, we're only doing the sewer, but should the water lines that are there conflict with the new stormwater, DOT would take care of that problem and cover the expense to that, so this is just the agreement to that. So we're not agreeing to anything further than we've previously agreed to.
So moved.
Mr. Offel, second by Mr. Deshaies. Discussion. Resolution, poll individually. Mr. Offel.
Aye.
Mr. Carvel.
Aye.
Mr. Deshaies.
Aye.
Mr. Lemire.
Aye.
Authorize the maintenance, repair, and energization of the highway lighting system in conjunction with the reconstruction of New York Route 37B Parker Avenue Bridge.
So moved.
Mr. Offel,
Second.
second by Mr. Lemire. Discussion.
Yes, the question I have, would this fall under MED's realm?
Yes. They were involved in the process early on
Okay.
and actually came with a recommendation on the lighting. There was a previous bridge did in this community that didn't work out so well, so they've been involved in the process,
Okay.
recommending the type of lighting, the location of lighting to minimize expense, to make sure there's maximum coverage for lighting.
No, I guess, I don't think I phrased my question properly. We don't maintain, repair, and energize, they do, correct? So should, or are we the,
We pay for
are we the customer because we paid the bill? Is that where they're headed with this one?
For the customer.
in part.
Okay, all right, very good.
Motion.
You got it.
I'm sorry. Mr. Offel.
Aye.
Mr. Carver.
Aye.
Mr. Deshaies.
Aye.
Mr. Lemire.
Aye.
Proposed resolution, authorize emergency services agreement between the New York State Power Authority and the Village of Massena.
So moved.
Mr. Deshaies.
Second.
Second by Mr. Lemire. Discussion. This is, as you know, the annual contract with NECO to provide fire protection. Poll individually. Mr. Offel.
Abstain?
Mr. Carvel.
Aye.
Mr. Deshaies.
Aye.
Mr. Lemire.
Aye.
Resolution carries. H, hold harmless the County of St. Lawrence for providing services to the Village of Massena.
So moved.
Mr. Offel.
Second.
Second by Mr. Carvel. Discussion. Resolution poll individually. Mr. Offel.
Aye.
Mr. Carvel. Mr. Deshaies.
Aye.
Mr. Lemire.
Aye.
Resolution carries. East Dover Street. Aye.
He said,
He's happy.
I'm sorry, East Highfield Street.
So moved.
Mr. Offel.
Second.
Second by Mr. Lemire. Discussion. I do so we can address what this is in regards to. We are currently in negotiations with a firm to sell the former Public Works property on South Main Street as part of our economic development plan. And to do that, we would need some space available to relocate some of the structures or equipment that is there. This is far greater property than we need. Our line of thinking was to purchase more so that we could then work with residents to make sure that we are not interrupting things over there. So we would use a small piece, but make sure that there's appropriate buffers and that we're being good neighbors to people. This is just the first step. We understand the way that it's zoned over there, and there'll be much more public discussion discussion and dialogue on this as we go forward. This is the first step to giving us the option to seriously consider selling that piece of property on State Route 420 and South Main Street.
One more thing. Right now, we have 50-plus acres that are there. I believe it's Greenbelt Preservation, right through the 55-acre, old 55-acre tract. Is there any way that we could take part of that land, which is closer, and then take this land, put part of this land as Greenbelt Preservation to replace that?
To remove or redesignate GPD, you need state legislature and governor's approval. So the short answer is yes. It's not an easy process, but it makes a great deal of sense that we could do that. And that would minimize any impact to the residents in that area and meet our needs.
It'd be a little, it's a process, but if we own everything all around it, it'd be, it takes a couple of months, whatever it takes to get the state people on board to. And, I in the past, when discussing swapping land like that for the people in New York City, you have a tough time if it's any distance apart from the original land that you want to take out of that. But this is all bordering land, so it shouldn't be a big problem of taking whatever you need, 10, 20 acres out of that 55-acre tract and then put it into the other area.
That's a great idea. Further discussion? Poll individually. Mr. Otto?
Aye.
Mr. Carl? Aye. Mr. Shays?
Aye.
Mr. Revere?
Aye.
Resolution carries. I'd ask for a motion to enter quickly into executive session, please.
So moved.
Mr. Revere?
Second.
Mr. Otto, discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Would you step out?
Am I safe in assuming this
Personnel.
pertains to item J?
Personnel. Sorry?
Am I safe in assuming this pertains to item J?
Did you do that on purpose?
Yes. Mr. Otto.
Second.
Mr. Carl. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Tim, in referring back to the purchase of the property on East Hatfield, did you know about when this purchase will take place?
Right now, we're just signing the contract.
So during this fiscal year,
I'm sorry?
do you feel it will change hands during this fiscal year prior to June 1st?
I don't know. I mean, this is just to reach an agreement with them, and then there's the whole process that goes on, so.
Just to keep in mind, the purchase of the property is not in the current budget. If this happens, we have to know where the funding will come from, since it's the DPW, if we take out our general fund, it will be split in some percentage between general refuse, water, sewer. That's something that we need to decide.
We've had those discussions, but they're premature at this point. This is just the first step in agreeing to the price and the parcel. So that's all ongoing discussions that we'll make a determination on, but thank you for pointing that out. Returning to the agenda, authorization to canvass firefighter, fire driver. Mr. Levere.
Second.
Second by Mr. Carvel. Discussion, a couple comments to make on this subject. As you know, there's been a couple of vacancies at the fire department for some time. In the last 13 years, since 2003, the village has raised property taxes 47%. So in 2003, our per thousand assessment was at 1048. Current budget is at 1541. So we've raised property taxes 47%. Additionally, in that time frame, since 2003, we've used $3.5 million, more than $3.5 million in fund balance to offset our expenditures and revenues. So very likely, we're probably one of the few local governments during the recent economic downturn that did not right-size its staff. In the current budget, I tried to do that. The trustees also did and supported a number of those initiatives by doing that. However, because of collective bargaining agreements, our hands are somewhat tied when it comes to staffing with a couple of our departments. The collective bargaining agreement with the Village of Massena, between the Village of Massena and the Massena Permanent Firefighters states and specifies specifically the village will staff the fire department with not less than 8 association members and 1 working foreman. Given the current economic conditions here and in the North Country, we felt we needed to take some steps to try to reduce staffing when and where we could and reduce our expenditures. The challenge, as many of you know, it's identifying the services that are needed and wanted, and then, of course, being able to find ways to do that efficiently and to provide those services. In my view, the fire department services have not suffered in the last several months. The village should and will live up to its terms of the collective bargaining agreement. We did go to arbitration. The arbitrator ruled in favor of the union. We put on our argument and our beliefs as to why those positions weren't filled at the time. They did not side with us. They sided with the union. We will honor that contract. But I think it's important to point out that my preference and the same preference that I've heard from every one of the trustees is that when we have vacant positions, it's then that we want to look at reducing staff, reducing expenditures through attrition, not laying people off. In other words, we don't want to look at one of our employees and lay them off. So through negotiations, which we'll be beginning very shortly with all of our collective bargaining agencies, we'll be looking at a number of things, including staffing, and looking to reduce expenses where we can, minimize exposure to taxpayers. And again, I stress that it's our preference that we do not want to lay employees off. What I don't want to happen, and I'm sure the trustees don't, and again, I don't want to speak for them, is I don't want someone to point at us next summer or next year, should we reach different agreements in our CBA with regard to staffing. I can't believe you're laying someone off. I want to be clear that we don't want to be on the end of that finger. We tried to do this through attrition. It didn't work out. Again, I stress, we are going to live up to the terms of the collective bargaining agreement. We should. It's the right thing to do. We went through the process. They found in the union's favor, and we're going to support that wholeheartedly. But we are working as hard as we can, when and where we can, to reduce expenditures. And that's an insignificant challenge given some of the terms of our CBAs and the need to provide important and vital services. Trustees, any further comments?
Yes, I'd just like to say, 2%, the way it's figured this year, is probably going to be close to nothing when time to, we're going to start our budget sessions here shortly. So without a lot of development, new development and everything in the community, it's going to be really tough to continue as is. There's going to have to be some tough decisions made because there's just, the revenue's not there anymore. So it's just, it's out there, it is what it is. There's going to have to be a lot of tough decisions made, and this is part of the process, the way things are going now, so. That's all I want.
Further comments? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Voucher warrants.
I move that the voucher signed by trustee Carlin and myself be approved.
Second.
Second by Mr. Carlo. Discussion. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Monthly reports. Communications correspondence, I have none.
I just have one, I saw in the part, on 10/7 the other day, Mr. Wright from Dank was on there. He was talking about wanting all the communities to go to zero sort. Is that something that's been discussed with us at all? Has anybody from Dank been here to?
We currently have zero sort.
Yeah, we do.
We currently have zero sort. You throw it all in together.
Same thing that's referred to as single stream, right?
Correct.
Yeah, just using different terminology.
Well, if we got zero sort, why are we putting the newspapers on one side, one box?
No longer have to do that. No longer have to do that, Massena. Just throw it all into the one container.
We went to zero sort in 2013, January 2013.
And why were we, got through a couple months ago here, we had a big struggle over people putting recyclables into the garbage.
They started to
Oh.
enforce
You're talking about, he's talking
Oh.
about refuse and recycle. They're talking about
Zero sort.
recyclables. I mean, you
Zero.
can
Oh,
put
so
metal
the
with
regular
paper.
refuse
goes
and
with
everything.
recyclables?
They showed a bunch of guys with garbage going up a conveyor, and they were separating out everything as it went up to them.
That's not garbage, that's recycling.
Yeah, I think that was just
Going up there.
recyclables.
Zero sort pertains to recycling only, not refuse.
It didn't look like total recyclables to me, it was going up that conveyor. But, okay, that's just what I wondered, because I saw it there, and I was wondering, if that's something that was discussed here or what.
Any other trustees? Closing public comment, please. Mr. Gray.
A couple things, Sean Gray, 5060 Starter Street. I'm wondering if you can give us if you've done any research to see how much of the increases that you mentioned in the taxes and using the fund balance can be directly attributable to, let's say, the fire department or the police department. Secondly, last meeting, you would not approve any money for the winter chill because it was not in the budget. About 10 minutes later, you approved the building of a new garage, I believe at the sewer treatment plant, that was not in the budget. This week, you approved a purchase that's not in the budget. So I just don't understand why sometimes if it's not in the budget, it can't be discussed or there's no wiggle room, but if it's something that particular people want, the money can miraculously be found. That's one point. So I think it's maybe a little disingenuous to blame a particular department for the increases, to use that background of property tax increases to paint a picture that maybe one department's got. Because if you look at the facts, 9 months ago, you had a full complement of 9 people at the fire department. You now have 7. The 2 people you lost, there are no legacy costs because they're not receiving health insurance, they're not part of the retirement system. So they've been in the budget. You've given no indication of what the cost of overtime has been in that period, so we don't know if it's more cost effective to operate 2 men down, or if it's more cost effective to operate by filling the positions. And the only other comment I have is about the purchase of the property. It just seems that oftentimes something comes on the agenda very quickly, like a couple hours before the meeting. And I don't think that's fair to impacted residents, because they have no idea if they've read the meeting notice. They may see a tentative agenda, but when you do something major that's going to impact that many homeowners, you would think that they would deserve to at least be informed publicly that there may be a purchase that might impact their property, whether you make a decision in the future or not. So I guess my question is this time sensitive? Do you have a signed purchase offer for the old DPW? And if not, why the rush? Because you're meeting again in 2 weeks. Why did this have to be done tonight without proper vetting publicly for people to know what's going on?
I don't know if I term it as time sensitive. I mean, we're in negotiations, we're trying to finalize the other end of this deal.
For the old DPW?
That's correct.
But you don't have a signed purchase agreement or anything at this point?
I don't have what?
A signed purchase agreement for the old property?
Correct. Correct. And I'm not sure that your statement regarding the garage was accurate. The money came out of the capital improvement fund, so this wasn't new money spent, it was money that was in a different account.
But I believe the statement was made by the treasurer at the last meeting that this item was not budgeted this year. Did the treasurer make that statement?
As an expenditure. As an expenditure.
Or what else are there other than spending money other than expenditures?
It was in a capital improvement account, which is used for those such things. It wasn't at that point allocated toward a certain thing.
But it was not budgeted. It was in a fund. You took it out of a particular fund, but it was not budgeted. In your budget, there was nothing earmarked for building this building.
It was not shown, it was not allocated for in that budget.
But just so that, because I don't like making a mistake, did the treasurer say last meeting that money was not budgeted?
I'd have to look at the minutes, I don't know.
The expenditure was not budgeted.
Okay.
Is that accurate, right?
That's correct.
I just didn't like the impression that I was saying something that I didn't hear at the meeting 2 weeks ago.
The expenditure was not budgeted, but I think it is an important distinction that the funds are coming out of capital improvement fund.
Further public comment? Seeing none, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Mr. Alco,
Okay.
Mr. Carroll, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Adjourn. Thank you. What's up? Just a statement.
Looks like